wansati wankoka mama na wadabi na sankofa ni varanzango pu vana va mina ni varanzango pu na varanza vana va mina.
Meu cabelo, raízes de África. Minha forma, o barro nativo da América. Uma história que eu não sei, um nome que eu não me dei. Uma herança que eu inventei. Uma herança que eu inventei.
I have a heavy load, for my skin is the color of black. Ochre, born without rights in my home. Subjugation is all I know. King wana wamwi tudi Kimereki. What do they call me? My name is Auntie. My name is Auntie. Hey, yeah. Oh, oh. What do they call me? My name is Mosambik.
So, welcome, Serati. It's very nice to have you here for our conversation. We're very happy that you came and that we get this chance to talk to you a bit about your band and your projects and plans.
Thank you for having me.
So, as a start, maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit and also talk about Basadi Baminso, your project. What does it mean? How did it start?
Okay, so yes, my name is Serati. I'm a South African multidisciplinary artist, and I'm here to represent, and I'm here as part of the collective Basadi Baminso. So Basadi Baminso is an all-woman transnational political art music collective, and we are, a group of 4 women, a collective of 4 women from South Africa, which is me, Mozambique, Cuba, and Brazil. And so we came together January 2020, so that was last year. How we came together, first to begin, is I came, I'm from South Africa, and I came here to Mozambique October 2019, got into the scene, the artist scene, checked out some things happening and started performing as well. And Beauty, who's from Mozambique, a beautiful mbira player and singer, saw me performing somewhere. She's like, we need to do something. I really love what you do. I saw her perform somewhere. I was like, oh yes, I really love what she's doing. I want to meet up with this woman. So we had our first meeting and just had lots of conversation about music, about being artists, and we really resonated on this thing of how male-dominated the music industry is globally, but in Africa, we were talking about in Africa and her experience here in Mozambique. And we made the plan to do a show, a concert for Women's Day, March 2020. And we thought, okay, well, why would we get male musicians to come and play with us? Why not find female musicians? So we did a lot of searching because, as I said, it's not so oversaturated with male musicians that it wasn't easy to find female musicians. So we did a lot of searching, and eventually we met Catherine Triana James, who's from Cuba, and we met Nyurungai, who's from Brazil. And on our first meeting, we didn't know, first of all, we discovered that Ekaterine was from Cuba on the first meeting. So we're like, oh my goodness, we're 4 women from 4 different countries. African women and Afro-diasporic women. That was really powerful already. We felt like, oh wow, this is interesting, and we didn't plan that. It was just really organic. And even before we got to the concert, we realized, okay, we're a collective, we're going to work together. We're not just doing this one concert. We clearly feel a resonance, and it's clear that we have more to say than we can say in one concert. So that's how we started. We did the concert. It was a success. And the whole of last year, amidst the COVID restrictions and whatever, we were very fortunate that here in Mozambique, we were able to be mobile, we were able to move around. There were restrictions on events, so we weren't able to perform for a live audience, but we did residencies, we recorded our music, we did a lot that we've been able to now present, of the work that we've been doing. So, yeah.
Sounds like a really, really nice process as well. Just, you mentioned the name of your collective is Basadi Baminso.
Yes.
For the people that don't know what it means, maybe explain what does it mean and how did you come up with this name?
Yes. So Basadi Baminso is Setswana and Changana. So as I said, I'm from South Africa, and we speak Setswana, which is from Botswana, but we also speak it in South Africa. And Basadi is women, and Minso is roots in Changana. So we are roots women, and what we really, what our aim is, and what also became very clear as we were, spending time together, was that we are a political art collective. You know, it became very clear that we're not just about making music, you know, that we actually have something to say beyond just music and art, but like we want to rather use our art to you know, celebrate Black women that came before us. As I said, we're African women and Afro-diasporic women, so that was really powerful. Tell our stories as Black women, our pain, our joys, and everything in between. And to celebrate our culture, which is what we do in our music, to celebrate our traditions and our culture. And that entails, you know, writing our songs in our languages and also incorporating, you know, the traditions of, you know, the original religions of Africans that went to the Americas, Cuba, Brazil, with the Orisha songs and the folk songs. So that is a very big part of who we are, and so that's really how the name came to be.
Yeah, and you can already feel from your explanation how charged your music is with meaning and with content and you know, all of these different influences. I think that's great.
O grão de areia na pele, a dor no peito, a fé na frente do horizonte quente.
Woman of the sun, star woman, sweat woman, woman of the sand, woman of the sun, star woman, sweat woman, woman of the sand, woman of the sun, star woman, sweat woman, woman of the sand, woman of the sun, star woman, sweat woman.
Speaking about a bit more about, you already said you're a political activist, artist collective, and you have this campaign, Levantar Vozes para Cabo Delgado. Maybe you can speak a little bit more about it. How did it come to life? What are your goals? Where do you want to see it go in the future?
So the campaign is one of the, you know, our main project. That's one of the main projects that we've been doing this year. Just to give context in terms of how we've come to be also political art collective, is that, you know, last year we also did a residency, for instance, in Mafalala, on learning about Noemia de Souza and her journey. And Noemia de Souza was a very important figure in Mozambican history, and it was important for us to speak about her story and to discover her story and to celebrate her as a Black woman who, many times, as we know, women are not celebrated. Women's stories and women's you know, iconic women are not, their stories are not told as men are. So that was important for us, and so I just wanted to mention that in terms of what else we've done in terms of political. But Levantar Vozes por Cabo Delgado is is our campaign, so Levantar Vozes means raising voices for Cabo Delgado. So the campaign came about, so last year as we've been writing music, as we've been, doing our thing, we decided we wanted to write a song for Cabo Delgado. It was actually Beauty who was like, guys, we should write a song about the situation. It's important, as we say, we're political art. Here's something right in front of us that's important that we should address. And then the beginning of this, or was it end of last year actually, international lawyer Serati Maseko, who's actually my sister. So we're actually a big family. We're big, like we're sisters. We're like 5 sisters actually. So she approached us and said, we are all living here in Mozambique. We're living here in Maputo, very comfortable, not affected by what's happening in the north of this country. And just because we're not affected doesn't mean that we shouldn't do something. And I know you girls are, our political art collective. So I'm proposing we come together, collaborate on a campaign that will be, will be sort of two-pronged. So will be artistic and musical, but also, using traditional means of activism. So that's really what the campaign, how we're going about it is using music, using the arts to, reach places that sometimes like law or politics can't reach because not everyone is interested, or it's just more nuanced. And also we want to also use traditional means of activism by like having conversations and bringing in civil society and to talk about important issues that the campaign, like themes that the campaign has are related to the campaign, are related to the conflict. So the campaign has 3, just to say about the campaign, it has 3 pillars. So the 3 pillars are women and children, poverty, and freedom of the press. So these are the 3 areas that we are trying to kind of tackle or trying to raise awareness about with the campaign. So I'll start with poverty. Poverty is important because, first of all, just to say that this campaign, the conflict is really, really, it's a big issue, but it's not easy to kind of pinpoint one thing to say this is what's the cause. There are many causes and there are many issues that are related to this. But one of the main things is poverty. At the end of the day, we know that the northern part of Mozambique has been disenfranchised. The people have been disenfranchised and has not been as developed, or really has not been developed at all since independence. And so a big part of the issue is people feeling like they have not been a part of the development of the rest of the country. So poverty is one of the root causes, as is in many kinds of conflicts of this nature. And so we felt like we can't address or talk about anything related to Cabo Delgado and the insurgency without talking about that very fundamental, issue. The second thing, women and children, because in Cabo Delgado, but globally in conflicts like this, women make up more than half of the displaced people, and women go with children. So, women's issues, or women's condition in conflicts like this, in displaced situations and displacement camps, are very particular, and they're not always given the amount of attention that they deserve. Women, besides being displaced and that already being so disruptive to their lives, they have to contend with sexual abuse. Many times they have to use survival prostitution. They use whatever they have to survive, and many times the only thing they have is their bodies. So also the conditions in these displacement camps, they're not conducive to hygiene. So menstrual health is a big issue. Livelihood is a big issue again, because many times the women end up being the breadwinners because they're with the children. And so these situations, also it's important to note that in displacement camps, people think, or they're supposed to be a temporary situation, it's supposed to be a temporary sort of aid, but many times people stay there for many years. So livelihood is an issue that needs to be addressed, how people are able to make a living. So those are, that's an area that we felt like is really, as women especially, we felt like we had to tackle that. And then the third issue is freedom of the press. So freedom of the press is important because in the situation, the press has not been able to, to actually cover the issue. There've been instances of, harassment of the press, of journalists. Journalists have been expelled from the country and take their press cards taken away from them, so not being able to cover. And without information, we cannot hold the government accountable. We cannot actually help people because we don't know we don't have access to the situation, to information, to know what people's needs are, to know what the situation is. So information is a human right, and it's a really important thing. And we also felt, again, that that we couldn't address the conflict without addressing that, So those are the three, main areas. And we've been doing a number of activities this year. We had 2 events so far where we, one event where we were focusing on women and women's issues, and we had some NGOs and organizations that we're working with, that we're partnering with, coming to speak about the work they're doing, and to also, I think, make people aware that different ways to support, because I think people often think, maybe they just donate money, or they just, when there's a big attack has just happened, there's this thing of, donating money. But I think it's also important to know, like, donating pads. Why? Many people might not know, like, men might not understand why. They might think that's a luxury, but they have no clue, what are people's conditions, what are women's conditions. So we had an event where we had, an NGO that works in that area, explaining why sustainable pads are important, in these conditions, and why it's helpful to donate that rather than just money sometimes, or food, We had another event where we had MISA coming to speak, the Media Institute of Southern Africa, coming to speak on journalists and journalism and the press and their difficulties in the situation, and why it's important for us to, to kind of like support journalists in their pursuit to doing their jobs in the conflict. So yeah, that's kind of what we've been focusing on, and trying to get the funding to be able to do more, the funding to go to Cabo Delgado, to be able to actually see, because also, it's also difficult to kind of conceptualize what a displacement camp looks like, what are the people's conditions in order to be able to actually help, to do something, to think of activities, to think of ways in order to help. You actually need to have an idea of what the conditions are. So those are the kinds of things we'd like to do when we get the funding, to actually go to Cabo Delgado, to again do more events, to raise funds as well, of course, for those 3 different areas. Yeah.
There's a lot of work ahead of you guys. But I think it would be interesting if you, or when you get the funding, to go there and actually speak to people and also hear from them what are the main issues that they are struggling with, what's important, what needs to be done, right? Exactly, because also we have this thing of in conflicts, when it comes to victims of war or insurgency like this, we speak for the people, like they need this, and it's interesting and important to give them a voice, because as people have a voice, but to amplify rather their voices, to hear what, again, as you said, what are people's conditions, what do they hope for, what do they see for the future, those kinds of things are really important. And in this time of us, speaking to people who are doing things, other NGOs, other people who are really already deeply involved in trying to find solutions, we've heard that being said, that, it's important for us to not just kind of speak on behalf of people, but actually amplify the voices of the victims, of the survivors, so we can actually, also, I think, support their humanity, their sense of humanity. That's not like we're trying to help you, in a very paternalistic sense, but, rather support them in being able to help themselves, And I think the sentiment reflects also in the name of your campaign, you know, Levantar Vozes is lifting up the voices. So I think
exactly. And also I want to say, I forgot to say, this is really important. So as I did say, the campaign is a collaboration. So it's us as Serati Maseko and international lawyer German Maseko Poisson, and she's the campaign coordinator. So, you know, as a group, as a collective, we've been doing these activities. So it's not just an artistic, as I've explained, it's not just an artistic, you know, campaign. It's both, and that part is really important to mention.
And but part of the artistic aspect of your campaign, you've written a particular song especially for Cabo Delgado. Maybe you can talk a bit about it, and then we can listen to it after.
Yes. So to say, like, we released our EP, Serati Maseko, in June, 11th of June. So our EP is available on most platforms, many platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Deezer, Amazon Music, you know, all of them. And it's a 5-track EP, and one of the songs is called Biluyanga. So that's a song that is dedicated to the insurgency, to the victims of the insurgency, and it's basically saying, Biluyanga means my heart in Shangana, and it's basically saying, you know, meu coração está em chamas, my heart is in flames, you know, just like, you know, the lives of people who are in flames in Cabo Delgado, and who've had to flee their homes and who've had to, you know, experience all that violence. So yes, so we're trying to get the song out also because, as I said, you know, music and art is something that can reach, you know, reach many different places, and it can go further sometimes than just words or just like politics. So we're hoping that, you know, the song can kind of spread its wings and fly, and, you know, make people aware all over the world about the campaign and about the insurgency in particular.
bit apart from your campaign, and you've already spoken about your vision using art as activism and art as a political tool. How do you see this happening, like in overall in Mozambique? Are there more artists working in the same or similar way, or more activists leaning towards the arts to work in a similar way?
In my experience, yes, there are absolutely artists who are, you know, using their work to speak about important issues, political issues. I think it's challenging in Mozambique because, you know, people can, you know, sometimes you're repressed in terms of what you're allowed to say. As I said with journalists, you know, they don't have the freedom of speech, so, or the freedom to kind of release information that they find. So as artists also, what we find is that, you know, artists who are vocal, you know, sometimes they're silenced, or, you know, even with us, we've been told, you know, be careful by certain people. You know, people have said to us, just be careful. And so we've had to kind of, as I say, be careful of how we say things, or, you know, how we do things. So for sure there are artists, but it's not, the climate in Mozambique is not conducive to, I think, artists really being free to kind of oppose the government, or to, you know, to speak their minds.
Yeah, it's a shame. I hope we can maybe see some change in the future.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so.
And speaking about the future, you've now been in Mozambique for roughly 2 years.
Yeah.
What's your view of the country, and also for the future? Where do you see Mozambique going, maybe?
Wow, that's a difficult question. My view of the country. I mean, myself personally, I absolutely love Mozambique. I think it's such a beautiful country. That's why I'm here. I never planned to stay this long. I planned to come and just do some projects and then leave. But it's kind of grabbed a hold of me, and I think absolutely it's a beautiful country. It's a complex country, as many African countries are, you know, at this time where we've gone through colonialism, and now we're post-colonial, but there are still many issues, you know, that need to be dealt with. Many people are still not part of that freedom that, you know, we fought for, that Mozambicans fought for, that Africans fought for. So it's still in a transitional phase. But my vision as a South African in particular, I can say, what I appreciate about Mozambique is how mixed, you know, it is really. It's just across the border from South Africa. So as a South African, when you come here and you realize how mixed it is in terms of racially, you know, it's really refreshing. It's really refreshing, and it's really, yeah, it's really nice to see. Of course, again, and Mozambicans say it also, like, there's, you know, we don't see color, and I think sometimes maybe that is a bit exaggerated, because I do think there are still racial issues. But on the whole, you know, it's a lot more mixed than, you know, South Africa, for instance, and you have a lot more people being able to mix in terms romantically, or even just in friendship groups. It's just a lot more mixed, and like first generation mixed people, you know, and there are no issues, you know, depending of course on where they are, you know. I'm not saying there are absolutely no issues racially, but that's my view of Mozambique, and I think that's a really beautiful thing. And all I can say, I can hope that continues.
Yeah, no, yeah. I agree. It's also something that I appreciate a lot living in Mozambique, you know, the way people and different cultures, different religions just kind of cohabitate more peacefully in an overall manner. Yeah. Yeah, no, but really, and what I've understood from other people also, that, again, not maybe, I don't know about Cabo Delgado, but just the more north you go, because I thought Maputo as the capital would be the most mixed, but I've heard people saying, I can't say I've experienced this, but I've heard Mozambicans say that actually the more north you go, you find people mixing even more racially and religion-wise. So I think that's really interesting, and I'm excited to, as I continue to stay here, to discover that more and to experience that more. And maybe as a last challenge, For you as a politically active and observant person, what would you, looking at Mozambique and looking at the overall climate, what kind of social change would you personally still like to see happening in Mozambique, for example, to make it a more inclusive or more open for everyone?
I think you know, I would say I think freedom of speech is a big one. You know, the repression, there's a sense of repression, you know, of the government. And I mean, it's interesting because I come from a country like South Africa where, you know, people are used to going out on the streets, and, you know, and I'm not just talking about violence. That's not, you know, that's something extreme, but just being able to come out and protest and oppose, you know, and speak their mind. And I think a situation like Cabo Delgado, you know, what is needed, what I have thought of is needed is, you know, for people to come out on the streets and say, we're not going to accept this, you know. So that's what I would hope for, that, you know, that Mozambique could get to a place where, you know, people are allowed to freely come out and oppose the, you know, the powers that be, and oppose what's happening, so that things can change, you know, and people are allowed to speak their mind, and so that we can have, you know, long-lasting change. Yeah.
Definitely, and more open conversations like
exactly,
this one.
Exactly.
That's great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Maybe just to finish, since you're here representing your collective, would you mind telling us what is your vision, let's say, for Basadi Baminso in 5 or 10 years' time?
Oh. You know, I think we've spoken about so many things as a collective, so many things that we see for ourselves, and, you know, a big one is giving back to our communities. First of all, with this campaign, it's given us an opportunity to realize that, you know, we can do so much, and especially, you know, as 4 Black women, and with Serati Maseko, she's international lawyer, as 5 Black women doing this campaign, and then as Basadi in particular, we have such, there's so much power in what we're doing and what we represent, and we really want to do more. So Cabo Delgado is the first thing that we're doing as in terms of as an organization. But personally, I've talked about, like, you know, gender-based violence is a huge issue in South Africa. So I would love us to do something in that regard. Freedom of the press is a big thing, or freedom of speech is a big thing in Cuba, you know, so we'd like to tackle that. There's many issues in Brazil, you know, we'd like to tackle. So we definitely see ourselves growing and being able to have a voice and use our voice in our different communities, and, you know, working with other, of course, you know, working with other artists around the world, and traveling and touring. Going to Brazil, going to Cuba, going to, you know, touring Europe. I mean, that's such a big thing. You know, I think we'd love to get our message out there. We're now going to South Africa, so doing more of South Africa in terms of just musically. So I think we have a lot of projects that we can see ourselves doing. We're in a stage now where, you know, we've been together for a year, just over a year, and we're kind of growing and realizing how much more we can do, and how much more, like, again, I think this campaign has made us realize how much power we have and how much we can use our voices and use our art to talk about important things, and how powerful that is. So I think that's a big part of how we see ourselves.
Cool. Wish you the best of luck, and we'd like to see you guys soar.
Thank you so much to KKM for the interest, and you know, for giving us this platform to speak about our work and you know, what we're doing.
Yeah, and thanks so much for coming and being here and sharing all of your thoughts with us. It was really interesting.
Thank you.
Maya sesu, ya sesu ye maya, oloto ye maya, oloto. Yasesu Yemaya Yemaya Sesu Yasesu Yemaya